Well, hello YouTube, it's me Fortmaster, and welcome to something new. This is the entire lore of Rimworld, I guess, by Noobert, not to be confused with Noobert, but, oh god, this video, I saw it a while, again, it's one of those videos I saw a while ago, and I put it into into my list of videos I want to do reactions to, and then kind of forgot about it, but I chose it specifically because, like, Rimworld was one of those games that I used to have a lot of fun playing. Like, I bought it when it first came out, but then I kind of rediscovered my love for it, and I've been kind of off and on playing it for a little while. Granted, I'm saying this like I played it before, like, any of the DLCs were a thing. I mean, with the newest DLCs where they've added, like, where you can get, like, Imperial titles, and look at, like, eldritch monstrosities and cults and religion and, you know, all that sort of stuff, talking about your settlements you can make. I was unaware that Rimworld had lore at all. So, yeah, this video definitely caught my attention, and I want to see what it's about, whether it's going to be like one of those videos where I've seen a few where, like, they'll play the game normally, but they'll, like, narrate it and edit it to actually a full-on story, not so much like a Let's Play, or if there actually is lore to Rimworld that I was just completely unaware about. Because honestly, the only things I could think of that I only know for sure about Rimworld is, obviously, with the name Rimworld, you're on, like, the rim of either the galaxy or whatever, you know, government there is. And, you know, there is that race of robots that would occasionally crash in and start shooting up your settlements and stuff like that. I'm forgetting what they're called at the moment. Very interested to see where this goes, because, again, no idea Rimworld had lore. But, and also, I don't know whether this is, you know, was this lore that's always been in the game, or has it been stuff that's been added on to, you know, the game with, like, the DLCs and stuff that have been added. So, yeah, let's see where this goes. So, yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video will lead to my display of the day. And, yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Ah, lore. An important thing of any media. Despite how it looks, Rimworld actually has a lot of lore to talk about. Now, some caveats. A lot of the lore here has changed, or the canon is a bit hazy, but we will do our best to let you know of any retcons. Should also mention that while Oscar and his team do a good job with Vanilla Expanded, the lore they include will not be mentioned. We also won't be going completely precise. This is a more broad stroke of the Rimworld universe. Now kick back, get some of that long pork jerky, and relax while I tell you the stories of Rimworld.
Oh god. You know, just thinking back to like the earliest times I played, again, like with all like the mods and stuff like that. Honestly, I was thinking back, I was never that good at the game. I'd always I'd get like attacked by like some massive group of bandits and like not survive, or, you know, something else, or like just not have enough food for when the first winter came, and it was just, and then I would just like, oh, I'd sulk, I'd leave the game for like a week, and then I'd try again, and it just had the cycle repeat endlessly.
So, starting off, the name of the game, Rimworld? What exactly is a Rimworld? Well, a Rimworld is a planet in the outer rim of the galaxy with no real centralized government or a high population.
Makes sense.
Think of them as the Wild West town of planets. Plenty of travelers, but not a lot of people sticking around. The technology is usually around industrial due to the many people crash landing, merchants, and, of course, ancient cryosleep vaults waking up. For other planet types, you have the Dead Worlds. Contrary to their name, it's referring to planets with no human interaction. Planets that are fresh and unknown. What is a dead planet? are glass worlds, sometimes referred to as marbled worlds. For one reason or another, high-intensity nuclear weapons destroyed any and all life on the planet, leaving it just a dead shell in the universe. Toxic worlds, meanwhile, are planets engulfed by so much pollution or chem and nuclear warfare, it's basically uninhabitable without certain technology. And
God, that's already been a lot more added. Like, thinking back, I don't think that when I played it, was there the option to live on a planet that had like no other factions or other humans on it, or like, because like I obviously don't remember, like obviously like the radiation stuff type planets, like that wasn't a thing back when I played heavily. God, now this is making me really want to play RimWorld again.
animal worlds are planets that have life aside from humans. More than likely, something wiped out the human population, or the planet was seeded with life for one reason or another. Medieval worlds are planets whose whole government is around our agricultural area. So, knights and castles all around. Only, rather than growing out of it, these planets keep this tradition for millennia, similar to you players out there with your medieval runs. Steam worlds are similar to our planet's 19th century. So, steam-powered machinery, usually a short period before moving to a midworld classification, but depending on culture and government, could last a long time.
Okay, that has to be a mod. I don't think they'd add, like, Warhammer Fantasy style tanks into this. Like, while that would be cool, I imagine that'd be a licensing nightmare.
As for midworlds, it's classified as a planet that has mastered flight, but not cheap interplanetary travel. Earth, as of writing, is definitely a midworld. Herb worlds, meanwhile, are planets composed of cities that have grown so much. The whole planet is basically one big city. Think Coruscant or Nar Shaddaa from Star Wars, or the hive planets of 40K. These places tend to be insular, not trusting outsiders, and a very polluted and violent home. This outcome usually happens when population growth outpaces cultural and technological growth. I should mention this planet type does have the ability to make mechanoids, but also tends to go full cyberpunk with corporations running the show. Glitter worlds, meanwhile, are planets with extremely high technology. Think Star Trek level of tech with space travel, medicine, and food production. People from these planets tend to be carefree, with their desires tended to, never seeing war, unless they choose to join the Space Navy, and rarely have to lift a finger with that AI and robotics doing the heavy lifting.
Oh, God. You know, that's one of those things. I remember, like, back in the day, like, wanting so badly to do, like, a world where, to do a run where you progressed from, like, tribal tech all the way up to glitter world medicine. But at the time, there were no good mods that really implemented full-on glitter world tech. But now I think it's actually, like, a full-on thing in the game, so maybe that might be an idea.
Certainly a paradise for some, but a dull existence for others. Why else would the rich explorer decide to leave their glitter world to try some camping? Now, Core Worlds is one of those things that has had their meaning changed. Originally, Core Worlds and Rimworlds were set in opposition, but now seem to have shifted the meaning to mean planets in the core region of somewhat unified planets. Like say how in our galaxy, we'd have our core 9 planets. Then anything beyond that would be a Rimworld, least in a simple term.
Oh, okay. I wonder why they changed that.
It's likely referring to the core of planetary travel. Being in the core area means you are traveling through relatively safe regions with stable governments. Go beyond that, and you deal with pirates, mechs, and planets that might not help you if you need a new tank of space gas. Though, if you are lucky, or perhaps unlucky, you might find a transcended planet. Think of an entire planet becoming a full computer. No one really knows why this happens, but most scholars agree when a sovereign architect incorporates a planet, they turn it into a giant machine for whatever purposes. Just hope it's not like AM. Now that's a digital being that we can hate, yes.
Oh god. Sure. World tech level. Oh. Use this instead. Multi-floors? Oh god, that is beautiful. Oh no. God, this is making me want to play a Rimworld playthrough. Ah, god. Ah!
Hated, yeah. For the last planets, they are specialized planets used by other civilizations. Industrial worlds are planets designed for industry. Basically giant mining, smelting, and manufacturers all over the entire planet, using all of its resources. Indworlds refer to planets going into its industrial revolution, possibly moving into an industrial world or a midworld. Farming planets are planets devoted to crops. I would assume medieval worlds would be good choices for this, but some do use automated machinery, and next do autonomous agrarian work. Prison planets, they are very simple to understand. They are designed to house the galaxy's prisoners and malcontents of the worst order. Feudal worlds do exist, being multi-planet dynasty worlds that aren't related to Rimworld's empire. Trash and junk planets. Both places to throw out your garbage. Usually used by glitter worlds, it could be inferred that junk planets could be used for salvaging, with trash planets just for dumping non-recyclable things. Ice worlds.
I'll say that again. That almost makes me want to think of maybe setting up. Again, all of these are really making me want to play a game in Rimworld and just all these different scenarios. Can you imagine setting up a scenario where you're on a junk planet, but that's it. You set up in a mountain and you get almost all your resources just from scrapping the falling debris coming from the sky. Ooh. That'd be fun.
Are self-explanatory rare planets. I'd assumed used to collect water for other planets. Dino worlds are planets like animal worlds, except with dinosaurs, either through evolution or genetic work.
Jeez, really?
Species in the canon are the ankylosaurs, blue mammoths, and novoraptors. War worlds are planets in endless conflict for one reason or another. Possibly also a toxic planet due to use of chemical warfare.
Yep.
Who knows? Maybe the resources on the planet are being fought over. Maybe the planet is a pinch between two warring empires. Who knows? But we do know that this warring nation will never be at peace. Oceanic planets also exist, though not a lot of data on them. Probably because there's nowhere to land.
Yeah, probably.
Finally, plenty of planets that don't quite fit any category. It's a big place. Never know what you could find in the universe.
Yep.
Now that we got the planets, what about the technology? Given it's sci-fi, you have the usual hodgepodge of spaceships that provide interstellar travel, mostly thanks to the Johnson-Tonica drive, an engine drive that allows for longer periods of flight without going against the laws of conservation of mass and energy.
Just thinking about it, I remember, I've only ever built the ship once. And it was only because the AI that you needed to build it fell from the sky with some of those robot mechs I was talking about. It was funny. I built it inside the mountain and didn't realize that when you started it up, everybody would start attacking you. Oh, God, that brings back so many memories.
Sci-fi stuff, no real faster than life travel, so similar to franchises like Alien, people utilize cryosleep pods in order to sleep through the decades and centuries of travel, though I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a slight issue with the canon that has been brought up. Beyond the Architect, whose technology is by canon, godlike and not really known about by us or people in universe, there is the issue of the psi-casting ability, Solar Pinhole, and the skip and far skip psi-casts. Skipping and far skipping, also known as teleport, pawns to locations either on your map tile or beyond that, possibly across the world. It's possible that this act of instant teleportation can't be done on a scale of a ship or across the universe.
Oh god, there we go. Yeah, there's psychic powers that I really have no experience with. I guess I never thought about that whole thing was like, oh yeah, they're traveling through space using like cryosleep and stuff like that. Because like I remember that's one of the things with the characters. Like they have they have an actual age and a biological age. Where like I always found it really weird because I guess I never thought through it that much. But like you have a character that's like, oh, biologic age 22, real age 557 or something like that. And I always found it like really confusing. Like I always just assumed that it was just, oh, future tech. So like they have, the technology to keep themselves young or stuff like that. But then you have other people who are like actual age 300, biological age 74. So
hence the need for less than faster than light travel, or this was a slight snag when the Empire DLC came after the game launch. Who knows? Same with Solar Pinhole, which does canonically skip material from a nearby star to your planet. Yeah, now that would break the non-FTL canon of the game. Not trying to nitpick, but I'm sure some people might call me out for not mentioning this slight break of canonicity.
Well, I mean, maybe it's not actually teleporting, maybe it's time travel. Like, maybe the power is tunneling into the past and plucking some of that, like, that solar matter, that, little tiny sun, and then bringing it to the present. So it's not actually moving. Actually, never mind, that sounds really stupid.
The wiki has a good rundown of the math needed to explain all this, and a better explanation of how it relates to, or breaks, the canon. From ships, there are other technologies in this universe, obviously. Mechanoids. You and I have dealt with them often enough to notice them. Both used for commercial use or military. These are a dime a dozen. On many planets, mostly glitter worlds of course, there are charged weaponry used by their military which use magnetically coated particles to release a shot and then cause a localized explosion on impact.
Reminds me of the Gauss rifle from Fallout. Like, honestly, favorite weapon in that game.
These are usually wielded by space marines, because every high sci-fi setting needs space marines. Don't need to explain what a space marine is. They are heavily armored military badasses who usually are on go juice to keep them functioning even in long-running campaigns.
Yeah, and if you're a company like, Wargaming, then that means that you're going to try to copyright the actual words Space Marine, even though they're used in many franchises.
Since vibro knives are a canonical technology, it's possible to have vibroblades. Vibroblades being a term for a bladed weapon that vibrates so rapidly it's basically a saw on a molecular level. Before you ask, no, a monosword is not a vibro weapon. It's a blade with a monomolecular edged weapon completely different from a vibro weapon. Yes, for other technologies mentioned.
Actually, thinking about it, I think I've heard, like, again, there's like the monoblade sort of concept. Again, that's something else that's in Warhammer 40k. But I've also heard, I think there was one iteration of Wonder Woman where like the edge of her sword like not split out, but split the oxygen molecules in the air when she moved it. So that's why it was always like coated in like a field of energy or plasma or something like that.
We have a mention of a substance F, a type of drug, possibly related to Luciferium or something completely different. We don't know.
I've never heard of Substance F before. That's new to me.
The use of mind wiping and reprogramming of bodies, usually on herb worlds, to body confiscate. Prisoners, very dystopian to say the least. Autocycles and netcasts are a mid-world technology, possibly analogs for our world's motorcycles and internet. While VidTube is this game's analog for YouTube, pretty much how YouTube is any kind of videos you want, unknown if it's linked universally or, just planet locked. Maybe you're getting this video from beyond the dimension.
Oh my god, wait a second. On this, is that is that like a 490 or right there on this communication pad? That looks like a GPU right there.
No void. Who knows? Holographic and VR technology is commonplace as well in these glitter tech planets, usually used for what you think they be used for. That being entertainment and education, of course. Glitter worlds also bring
Entertainment,
neural
quote
simulators,
unquote,
which allows someone to experience simulations of whatever you can think of. Unknown if it's related to VR though, but I assume there is some connection possibly with neurotrainers as well, given they both can give pawns experience, not unlike certain special training rooms that we've seen in Star Trek. Genetic work is also a commonplace thing in glitter worlds. You have the usual super soldier program to make the best space marine. That's pretty common.
Yeah.
But there are other things beyond the vat-grown soldiers.
Oh god, yeah, the hybrids and stuff like that. I remember, like, what was it? I think like when I reinstalled the game sometime last year and I rediscovered or just discovered all this new stuff, I saw there was one trait where you can have people that like, where they have like extreme body dysmorphia, where like, oh, they're disgusted by not having cyborg limbs, or like they're disgusted by not being not mutated, but like genetically altered and stuff like that.
There are the perfect mates who are designed to be, well, perfect mates. Now, this came before the concept of xenotypes, so it's not entirely known if perfect mates later shifted into the high mate xenotype or are a separate thing. We will, however, go over xenotypes later in the video. Genome projects and lab-grown children apparently have been mentioned in passing in canon, possibly linked to vat-grown soldiers or an offshoot of the technology. Though what is more canonical and in-depth are the clone farms. Clones constantly grown and raised in VR, simmed environments to be later harvested for their organs, workers, or even food.
I'm just trying to think of the logic there. Like, okay, I can get the premise of, growing clones to harvest their organs. Though, I mean, if you have that technology, why not just grow the organs themselves? Unless, there's too much of a risk of the organ failing or something like that. But, like, why would you need to keep them in an environment for them to, like, learn and stuff like that? Like, even if it was just a digital one. Like, that just seems like an unnecessary waste of, like, processing power or something like that. If, you're going to be just, harvesting them for their organs. Like, at that point, just have them be brain dead. At that point, that just seems like, one less thing to worry about failing.
Gotta have that corpse search somehow, I suppose. Apparently, space elevators and hive minds are also a technology on some worlds. Though not commonplace tech, they are standard sci-fi tropes in general. Along with 3D printers, though on a larger scale mentioned in shipyards, man, could you imagine that? Making an entire ship via a 3D printer. Be like one of those fast Lego building montages. Oh, and there is Glitterpedia, an obvious take on Wikipedia.
Okay.
Guess in the universe, kids can't use Glitterpedia for sources. Yep, that's what they can use. Then there is some building materials, like Eltex, a material used in clothing to help psycasters. It's unknown what Eltex really is in base Rimworld due to our only source being Eltex robes and prestige gear. It's possible it could be either a unique metal that can be threaded and light, or some kind of new element in the universe. Steel is also a common material used in the universe, along with gold and uranium.
Yeah, steel is so common in this universe that they find deposits of steel underground. Like, granted, I mean, like, like, when you find it, it's always described as compacted steel, so most likely something crashed there, and then it was just crushed through, geologic processes, but still, very weird. And also, thinking about it, the longer this goes on, the more I can't help but think that, like, the tech and just world of Rimworld is just seemingly like every single, sci-fi and like sci-fi world put together and thrown into a blender. Because like we're getting everything from like cryosleep to actual FTL to psychics to like genetic engineering, to like core worlds and like post-scarcity worlds like the glitter worlds and stuff like that. Like there's seemingly everything, and I've never like noticed it before, just how like just scattershot everything is. Usually when it comes to a sci-fi setting, you have them be a little bit more focused. Though I guess in this instance it kind of does make sense, just for just for the whole thing of RimWorld is very much RPG based, so you kind of want your characters not to be limited, really.
So I'm going to assume that all other periodic elements are in this universe, just not really focused on gameplay-wise. But what is plasteel? Well, plasteel is a common sci-fi term since 1942. Yes, that old. That refers to a metal with both qualities of plastic and steel. At the very least, we know this game's plasteel is stronger than normal steel, which does make it useful for shipmaking. Bionics are also commonplace in the universe.
Oh, yeah, bionics.
A common sci-fi trope of replacing one's body with better limbs. Straightforward stuff. Though synthread and hyperweave isn't as quite a common thing, synthread being a synthetic fiber that's light and strong. As for the methods to make it, it's unknown due to have no way for us to beyond mods to actually make it, yeah. But it's possible to either be some kind of plastic or metal, who knows? Or perhaps genetic work like using spider silks from another animal. It's a very interesting thing, but
Spider silks from another animal. I mean, granted, I know what he's getting at when he says that, but that almost sounds like, oh, hey, we genetically modified this monkey to produce spider silk. Like, that would just be weird.
We just don't know anymore. Hyperweave, meanwhile, is only reserved for glitter world tech, using nanofibers to remain loose until impact, in which case they harden. Yes, nanomachines, son. It's some good stuff.
Yeah,
then
of course it is.
Super godlike tech, the manometric power cells for instinct come from Archotech, creating limitless power in a small space, obviously breaking all known laws of thermodynamics and conservation.
Technology developed by Archaeotechs, it is beyond even most glitter world societies. While nobody knows exactly how it works, scholars believe it somehow extracts energy directly from fluctuations in the quantum foam. Okay, that's certainly something.
Of energy, this is also where AI tech and powerful psychic tech come into play. So to review, the tech eras are Neolithic, basic, prehistoric, and tribal stuff. Medieval is self-explanatory, though it's possible to have early wind and hydropower if they had access to the technology one way or another.
I mean, you build a dam not to turn a turbine, but to turn a water wheel to grind flour. I mean...
Industrial era, which we would be classified in. This refers to more modern conveniences and technology before the JT drive, allowing for proper space travel. And then spacer technology is the modern RimWorld person, being able to travel from planet to planet, access to decent high-tech gear and sciences.
Okay, is that a mod, or is that actually in the game? I gotta look at the store, see if there are any pictures on the DLCs. No, yeah, it seems to be just... that most likely is a mod. Oh, God, that would have been cool. Now I need to find out what that mod is.
Ultratech is the higher class of technology eras. Glitter worlds are always on this level, and is considered the peak of human potential in terms of science and technology. Finally, Archotech, a mysterious theoretical era, only reserved for powerful machines, superintelligences. We can barely understand what they can do and how to do it. So yeah, a lot of technology to go over, and we haven't even talked about the Xenotypes, since genetic engineering is an important factor in this universe. Xenotypes are from the Biotech DLC, and naturally, they have their own lore that's fit into this universe pretty well. Take the dirt moles, created due to the issues of creating underground colonies on planets, mostly for mining. After all, we as humans have to go out into the sunlight even if it's once per week. But dirts are designed to have skin able to adapt to artificial light, better mining instinct, and of course, no problem being underground for the rest of their lives. They of course spread out into the universe and usually can be found where there is an underground. Dirt mole's gonna dirt mole, no matter what, am I right?
Okay, so they're space dwarves. Okay, interesting.
Genies, not to be confused with wish granters or heroes like Jinns, are the engineer race. Designed thousands of years ago by a now long disbanded space navy, these xenotypes are meant to be the smart engineers, created to be calm under pressure and able to learn how to operate more complex machinery. It's no wonder they can be seen in many civilized planets as engineers, lawyers, pilots, or anything else where having a big brain can help you. You won't, however, see them in the front line that often, since their bones are more fragile than graham crackers and their nerves are cranked up to 11, so don't expect them to be a good soldier.
Yeah, I'd imagine, they probably feel pain a lot more than the average person. Or your baseline human, I should say, in this instance.
What are good soldiers? Are the hussars. Literal living weapons. They literally live off go juice and fighting. No one really knows who made the hussar, but it makes sense why they keep being engineered. They heal fast, hit hard, and don't mind living on the fringes of society.
Yeah, I just noticed these people have tails, so they're some sort of weird genetic freaks.
To be used as a human weapon. Just don't expect to make friends with them due to their more unstable emotions and the occasional hussar stare, where their blood-red eyes just give a dead expression that makes any baseliner kinda just uncomfortable. On the polar opposite, the high mate, a xenotype for being the perfect companion, able to psychically bond with others, and with their immense beauty, they live out their lives as consorts of the very rich and powerful. On some glitter worlds where the xenogeme is common, some people take a career path as a high mate, though not without its problems, namely being unable to do manual labor or violence, even if their life depended on it.
Oh god, that was the one thing. I remember there was the one mod that I always used to play with in Rimworld called the Carefully Prepare mod, I think it was. And you could specifically, choose traits for your pawns when you're choosing, when you're, randomly generating them and stuff like that, instead of just sticking with whatever was randomly generated for them. And god, that was the one thing I altered no matter what I was trying to do back in the day, just because I hated people who could not do manual labor, because it was so annoying. It was depending on your depending on what scenario you were playing as, you usually started with 1 to 3 people, and if one of those first people you had couldn't do manual labor, that slowed things down so much.
Which is unfortunate. Then there are societal problems. A lot of people loathe high mates for being unnatural humans who distract people from making natural families. There are also the uncanny valley problems of a genetically engineered human. Some planets outright ban high mates for this reason. And no, not the cat ears, that's from Vanilla Expanded. Also in the lore is the so-called perfect mates, but beyond some entries, I think it's implied that perfect mates are vat-grown xenotypes as opposed to high mates being a more natural xenotype. Impids are your devilish-looking xenotype. Born to be living out in the desert and other hot regions, they will be a problem for many out on the rim. They aren't good at farming, have a genetic predisposition for sadness, and look like Devorians from Star Wars. Oh.
Jeez, that's a very... They have a genetic predisposition to being sad. That is such a pathetic and horrible existence.
Devoranians, yes. They make their problems everyone else's problems, acting more as raiding tribes or working with pirates and other aggressive groups. In Rimworld, they are one of the few mono-xenotype groups you can encounter, those being the aptly named Savage Impid Tribe. Also looking like a Star Wars character, this time Wookiees. The Yickens are big fuzzballs who,
these are the people,
you shouldn't make angry. Born from the ice moon of Yetk, I can't say any of these words, which was described as an ice moon prison. These walking carpets can psychically link to animals and feel more at ease without clothing. Now, granted they are slower than others with their more robust genetics, they can keep up a fight longer. Don't get into a fist fight with one of them, you will regret that. And aside from their connection to wild animals, they aren't really known to be proper psychcasters. But hey, when they run successful pirate gangs that have a bit of a tribal structure, maybe you don't have to worry. Like the
Probably.
Impids, they act as their own faction, a pirate gang, since most Yatkins don't find bustling cities to be good homes. You usually find them on Rimworlds or other less developed planets, either as citizens or pirates. Neanderthals are cavemen.
Okay.
There isn't much to really
Wait,
say
literal
about it.
Neanderthals?
In universe, they died out like in our human history, but then some scientists brought them back. For reasons. Yeah, it's not very clear why they thought to bringing them back was done, but hey, how they are around in primitive tribes all over the Rim, unlike the Impid tribes, these big, dumb, tough guys can be reasoned with, and even allied, so maybe making friends with the club-wielding maniacs next time you are out on the Rim. Yeah, not a bad plan.
That it reminds me of something. I've seen it a couple of times in YouTube Shorts, but there's this one clip from Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about, oh yeah, we found like frozen Neanderthal flesh, and it's like there were people talking about trying to clone it and bring one back to life or something. And I agree with Neil when he says that would be a horrible idea, simply for the fact that us humans fight amongst ourselves for like literally like sometimes like such stupid reasons such as, oh, skin color, or, oh, hey, you're not where I'm from, or basically. Can you imagine what would happen if you had a human that was quite literally a different species of human, and one that was noticeably different from other, from like Homo sapiens, to the point where like they don't communicate the same way, they possibly might not think the same way, or might not be able to learn the same way. Like, that just seems like purposefully pouring gas on the floor and waiting for somebody to strike a match.
It's no secret that out on the Rim, organ harvesting is the main export along with illicit substances. However, not every civilization likes the idea of harvesting from their fellow man.
Of course.
Their solution? Pig people. Yeah,
Pig
pig skins
people?
were designed to be organ harvested, and it worked pretty well, making a pig-like human who is tough, able to digest raw food with no problems, and with their nearsightedness, won't see the sniper coming. Nowadays, pigskins tend to stick to each other in rough colonies. You either can be friendly or enemies with them. They know how useful their organs are, so they tend to compensate for their hoofs for hands, and nearsightedness with melee weapons and explosives.
So thinking about that, I'm trying to think. I mean, like, I guess that could be playing into the whole thing where, like, actually quite a bit of, like, potential transplants you can get you can get from pigs. Like, I know you can get, like, is it heart transplants or just valve transplants? I can't remember. But I know one of those two you can get from pigs. I think you can also do cartilage. Honestly, like, God was doing, God was having a good day when he made the pig, honestly, because they're both useful and very tasty.
Wasters were created as area denial xenotypes, namely of toxic death worlds that a civilization would want to keep. However, that purpose has long since been forgotten, as most wasters became violent psychopaths running pirates. Oh yeah, one part their environment, one part genetic aggression, and I'm guessing the psychite they have to ingest to live isn't helping their mood a little bit at all. If you meet wasters, it might be due to a nearby waster pirate where they and many other violent xenotype pirates will be from. Yep, finally, Xenophages, the vampire xenotype that we
Vampires,
all know and
really?
love. Legends speak of a space explorer by the name of Varen Dur, a man who desired to control an archotech intelligent, but rather than controlling the godlike entity, he was transformed by it, turning into a blood-drinking monster. From him came the entire xenotype, and they are constantly hunted due to their ability to implant their genes into others to spread and their constant need for hemogym with human blood. Yeah, real Vampire the Masquerade stuff going on. As they say, they secretly run all human society, either controlling empires or just running on boardroom with a blood cooler for the employees. That, or running nightclubs that get invaded by Marvel heroes. Either way, the Rimworld universe has quite the hodgepodge of different flavors of mankind.
Okay, so let me just try to, sort through all these. So, of course, we have, normal humans with, all of the weird genetic stuff that can be done to them. We have literal Neanderthals. We have soulless super soldiers. We have pig people. Who are harvested for their organs. We have vampires. We have people who went crazy because they were specifically designed to live on, toxic waste planets. We have smarty pants people with brittle bones. We have the people who are made to be party companions and seemingly little else. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I want to see like Rimworld turn into an actual like sci-fi setting, like with a TV show or something like that, just to see what this stuff would look like outside of the little like pawn art style that the game has for its characters. I mean, you already have all of the story potential out there. I mean, all you have to do is get a couple of good writers on the case.
Gotta love it. Now for the factions. Every good sci-fi setting
Needs
has
factions, yep.
You got mechanoids, who are your standard killer robot faction, but why are they the way they are? Well, in universe, people speculate they are unified by one singular goal, but due to distances to each other and time, not exactly coordinated. Given robotics are only used by spacer-level worlds, and above along with the help of AI, I feel like it's your standard Skynet or Shodan situation.
Probably, yeah.
Rogue AI waging war on humanity. It's also likely they were used in ancient wars, as the idea of wars from before our time is present throughout the game.
Honestly, again, the idea that, like, honestly, what time period does, like, how far in the future does Rimworld actually take? Because they're talking about ancient wars being fought with these, like, super advanced robots. Like, oh, God.
What with ancient vaults of cryosleep caskets,
like that's
so
40k levels or more.
Broke, or they don't see us, the players, as allies. Finally, the insectoids were bred to be a living weapon against mechanoids, though, like a lot of things,
we lost control. Yeah, of course.
This is why mechanoids and insectoids always fight each other. Just an instinctual programming. So where are the insects from? A planet called Sorn. In the lore is mentioned being the originator of the species that would be captured, modified, and bred to create the living armies. What about the Empire?
Yeah.
Released with the royalty DLC. Well, like all sci-fi settings, there usually is a huge galaxy, wide, spanning faction that kinda calls the shots. The Empire is not one of them. Yeah.
What?
Much to my surprise, the Empire as we know it is actually a fractured piece of the large empire, hailing from the planet Sophia Muda. The empire of today can be called refugees of a great calamity that split them apart. What this calamity is? Well, it's kind of complicated. See, when royalty came out, the calamity was said to be an unknown enemy, possibly alien in origin, but with the release of ideology came new lore that mentioned for some backgrounds of revolutionists. This could be a possible reason for the calamity, but revolutionists aren't exactly an unknown enemy. I like to think that both statements are canon. An unknown enemy broke the empire, and before they could kind of regroup and rebuild,
and then the revolutionaries,
and further broke the empire apart
makes
to
sense.
the shell of their former selves.
I mean, the whole thing, if you want things to change, kick them while they're down.
Though, don't think that they aren't weak. Even in a fractured state, the Empire is strong, following a caste system with a Stellarch leader holding sway over an entire star system. This Empire holds a lot of military and technological might. You might also notice, like many others, the Empire has quite a theming with their names. A lot of the naming scheme is based on ancient Italy and the areas around it, namely the Byzantine Empire, and how Rimworld's empire shares many traits of the Roman Empire, and how a great and powerful nation fractured due to outside and inside forces. To
I believe it.
Himself, I'm getting Eastern Roman vibes. Look at how the Imperial characters are named. Yes, Tynan, I see it too. Finally, other things you can glean from the Imperial lore based on backstories. You have Imperial churches that have both inquisitors and chaplains to help keep order and stop heresy and control psychics.
Also, I'm going to assume that this entire church is made out of solid gold, which, way to flex there.
Warhammer-like, but when you have a galaxy-spanning empire, the comparisons are gonna be there. Same with how ancient grand starships are floating around as mobile power bases. Both noble and common folk are raised on these ships, and I presume can be multi-generational. Plenty of wars of
that makes
secession
sense.
have happened, with the imperial families putting contingencies down to deal with this. But hey, this is a pretty common with any royal dynasty. And noble titles are primarily hereditary, with a family practicing primogeniture, which means having the firstborn inherit titles, though those that do practice rather than firstborn male tend to go with firstborn child. Given how gameplay is done, it's possible that these traditions have loosened due to the Empire losing members over generations. And
what are these things at the bottom? What? Who's this? And what is that? Like Mothman and big muscular freak with it. Okay.
are always looking for potentially useful and valuable new members to add to their dynasties. Hence, the player's involvement in the Royalty DLC. Suppose if there is any more information about the Empire out there, I'm sure in future DLCs and updates, we might get a bit more about this unknown threat.
Okay.
Though the universe is still pretty big, and there are still bits and pieces to mention that didn't go in the previous sections, like psi-casting. What exactly is psi-casting in the context
Mind
of
powers.
Well, psi-casting isn't like the Force, or Hammon, or even tapping into warp energies. No, it's actually a person tapping into the architect's superintelligences and kind of borrowing some power. Yeah, that's why people can psi-cast. They tap into some super powerful AI god thing that more powerful the psi-caster, the more they tap into this power. Scientists honestly have no idea of the true nature, as 1, trying to study an architect super being is pretty risky, and 2, any study they try to do seems to actively conceal itself from them, like the being is hiding the links. And
Okay, that's definitely a different way of doing that. Obviously, I've heard of, other, stories and stuff like that where it's like, oh, sometimes it's just mutation where they have psychic powers, or, in 40K where they're channeling the energies of the warp, like he said. But tapping into the powers given to you by an ancient anarcho-tech AI? That is really different and really weird.
And what about animatries? They can
animal
give people
trees.
psychic powers. Given there isn't any lore, my theory is that they are leftovers of Archotech experiments. They share a green hue, grant psychic power, and let out psychic energy in the form of a painful mental scream when destroyed. Feels like a logical conclusion, at least until further notice. So, what about boomalopes? Yeah, the lore around boomalopes and boomrats have also shifted just a tad. Originally, they were bred to be biological weapons. After all, living bombs you can train to run into whatever you want gone. Yeah,
I can see
the
that.
logic. This has been rendered non-canon.
Wait,
with
really?
their new backstory being they were bred for making renewable chem fuel. Even though in-game, boomrats don't give chem fuel like boomalopes, I think in universe, they do. Just not enough to be considered viable farm animals, though the in-game
I could see
descriptions
that.
do keep to the non-canon lore of being biological weapons. I'm willing to meet this halfway. Originally, they were weapons, but later repurposed after they realized maybe a living animal bomb isn't a good idea. Seriously,
Living animal
wouldn't be
bomb?
the first time. Look up the World War II bat bomb for how that worked. At least that's my theory for how both can still be canon. So what about Anomaly? The DLC
Yeah,
that
Anomalies,
just came out.
yeah.
Well, it came out a while ago.
It's
been
the
a while,
newest
actually,
DLC,
more than
yeah.
a little while. Well, to be honest, not much. I don't think it's because the DLC doesn't add lore. No, far from it. It isn't just because Anomaly is focusing on eldritch horrors and more unknown horror. What lore there is, like the Lovecraftian gods, is unknown. So what do we know, and what can we infer from what we already know? And come to a responsible conclusion, of course. Please, not that this isn't meant to be taken as canon. This is what we think could be reasonable thoughts with what we know. First, what we do know is the endgame involves researching enough to use the monolith to signal to a malicious architect entity and either shut down the signal or embrace it. What is this entity? My theory, the same one that created Xenophages, remember the lore of them was an architect entity corrupted as a person?
Okay, so now I'm just thinking. So the idea that in this universe, it's not like it's not like the literal Lovecraftian entities like Cthulhu or something like that. It's quite literally like some ancient AI, but then most likely alien that has just grown so big and powerful that it's transcended the universe and just is impossible for us to understand. Oh. Okay. Very interesting.
What are we facing throughout Anomaly? Basically corrupted organic entities. Yeah, beyond a few things here, you are mostly fighting organic targets, not mechanical. From why this entity is doing what it is, could be one of two things. Number one is insanity, a possible Rappancy situation similar to AIs in Marathon and later in Halo series, where the AI will eventually achieve so much power it goes insane by its limitations and either breaks its limitations or goes completely rampant. It's plausible this architect entity, even with a godlike power, found some sort of limit in the universe, and now corrupts things unintentionally. Why do I think this? Well, a lot of the entities you fight could be mistakes, or some kind of misinterpretation for their utility. The Shamblers and Ghouls being a corrupted resurrection serum, the Cube a joy source that makes people covet it beyond all other things, flesh beasts that could be organics it tried to create but instead made an almost cancer-like entity. The list goes on. You could find some logic in what is being created. Perhaps that poor traveler came
but it
to
doesn't
the
look
entity
like
looking
you
for
could.
eternal life, and did get what was asked. That being said, it's possible the entity is malicious. Take everything said here, and rather than be unintentional, it's all intentional. Either,
I mean, again, going back to the whole Am thing from I Have No Mouth, None But Scream. I mean, maybe this is what happens if Am transcended his limits. Like, he's no longer, has the power of a god in the body of an invalid. Maybe he's finally starting to break those limits and break out of his like. His not mortal, his like physical bonds, and is starting to basically transcend existence and starts warping things in his hatred.
to achieve more power, or just be a problem to everyone around them. Who knows? What end goals it could have, who knows?
Yeah,
Honestly,
literally
I don't
anything.
know. What is a worse situation? A malicious godlike being, or a godlike being who has no control over their power and hurts everyone around them? Though we do know a few things about this being, including its name. That's right. This nameless entity has a name. Horax. A name that can only be found like one finds lore in From Softworks game. Check the description of...
God, Horax. That literally reminds me of the lore video I watched for Lancer about the manufacturer Horus and their weird quasi-tech mechs that break the laws of physics and stuff like that. Why is it always why is it always so similar?
Items. If one looks into the tomes, the Grant Anomaly research, you will find in the description they begin to tell a story. This name is also revealed if you go into dev mode
Servants
and
of
check the
Horax.
factions. A hidden cult faction called the Servants of Horax is revealed. They are the ones who do a psychic siege attack. Now, the tomes have descriptions that give a slight description of what we are dealing with. How much truth comes from them, I suppose, is up to us to decide. One book tells the story of deep meditations, guided by a Hythrol from an Arcus cult. Another speaking of the collapse of Anypon's life under the psychic influence of something called Horax. Disturbingly, there is one that speaks of a tribe that was somehow transformed to serve the dark god of a bloody pleasure cult. I say disturbingly because this is a bit eerily similar to Warhammer's Slanesh. A tribal
I was just about to
myth of an
say
ancient
that.
god of rage whose influence touches all people, and the heroes who sealed it away inside a tiny stone prison. Potentially an explanation for some ancient dangers. The book includes many illustrations attempting to depict something it refers to as the Black Ocean. This seems to be a metaphor for a psychic plane dominated by a horrifying but seductive psychic hyperintelligence. potentially referencing the location you teleport to in Anomaly's endgame. Another says it repeatedly alludes to a multi-plane nature of reality, the idea that there are more dimensions than the ones we see, so an object or entity could be right beside you, but outside your ability to perceive. With another adding on by saying it spends a long time attempting to describe a hyper-intelligent entity called Horax that exists in an adjacent plane to reality. One section describes the mechanics of dark psychic influence, wherein an entity on another plane can unintentionally influence the thoughts of human beings by synchronizing them to its emotional resonance. Once again, another adds, one section describes different Architect hyperintelligences and the varying nature of their emotional and psychic emanations.
Honestly, again, I'm just still thinking about that. The concept of the, Eldritch entities actually being like super advanced AIs, basically. I mean, like, there's the whole thing, talking about like, oh, can you really like quantify how an advanced AI would think? And this is just like the logical extreme to that.
Where some are regarded as neutral or even benevolent, others are entities of pure rage. Another tome reads, throughout the narrative, the concept of parallel dimensions is recurrent, with the characters encountering entities that exist just beyond the veil of perception, coexisting in a reality that intersects with our own, but remains hidden from sight. With the additional insight saying, the book delves into a chilling exposition about Horax, a machine hyperintelligence that shifted itself through a hidden dimension into a place called the Void. From what I can understand, Horax is a powerful Architect entity. Given the statement of the nature of the Architect entities, one could infer this is a malevolent one, possibly of rage as suggested. This also implies there are countless other Architect entities who have yet to be seen or named in the lore. This might also explain something else. If Horax is in another dimension, this one being called the Void, it's possible other entities are in their own dimension, but not as malicious. We don't know if it willingly went into this dimension or is trapped, but what we do know, even in another realm of time and space, its power is great enough to influence humanity throughout the game's universe. Again, everything I said before still applies. We don't know if Horax is malicious by intent or accident, but given what is written, I'm willing to believe fully aware of the situation, but what its goals is unknown. But that's the thing about Lovecraftian writing. What makes the great old ones so scary isn't their look or their power, it's the fact from our perspective. They are unknown beings who see humanity the same as we see a bug on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So here's my question for you. What's a scarier thought for Horax? Do they harass your colonists without realizing it? Or have you alerted him to you by looking into the dark unknown that they reside in?
Honestly, again, like, I'm looking at this, and this video, my recording at least, is over an hour long, so that's going to be that's going to be quite the chop down when it comes to editing. But just all of this, literally a second off of 40 minutes of lore in a video game that I had no idea even had lore in the first place. Oh god, in this video, it just made me want to play Rimworld so much. Again, so maybe when a spot opens up in my schedule, I'll play it again, or maybe that'll be the next game I start streaming. Maybe get the audience involved, who knows. Might be fun. That is definitely going to be it for now. So, yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day. And, yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.